gods who ever lived. I think everyone in the room would agree with that statement. But some of the questions we don't usually get into is, how was it even possible at all for the name of the greatest inventor who ever lived to be historically marginalized? How was that even possible to do? Okay? Another question I'm going to attempt to answer is, who would have been so influential and powerful that they could have accomplished this? Okay? And then, of course, why was this done? I think we all have kind of a pretty good idea of this question. Why was it done? This slide that I'm going to build here may be the most important slide you will ever see in any presentation. I call it How Our Reality is Built. It's a truth discovery methodology. Down here, you have knowledge. This block represents available information, which constitutes potential knowledge that may be gathered, processed, understood, and then acted upon by individuals in our society. On top of that knowledge, or again, over here you'll see I've put or lack thereof. Okay, knowledge or ignorance. Okay, you have an understanding of that information. Again, or lack thereof. These are the decision-making processes that each one of us uses, and they are dependent upon the knowledge that we either have or do not have. So these processes take place in the human mind and are chosen by each individual based upon the available information that they take into themselves. Above that, something happens externally. Okay? We put our knowledge and our decision-making processes into action in the world through our behavior. Okay? And that I call wisdom or lack thereof. Okay? So each individual's behavior is based upon the quality of their decision-making processes, which, again, in turn, are based upon the quality of their available information that they've taken into themselves. This three-step process, okay, was in the ancient world referred to as the trivium. That's a Latin term. It means the three ways, the three methods. It's a threefold process of truth discovery. And it's been eradicated from the modern world. Eradicated. Okay? Real education in the past taught the trivium methodology. Now, so-called educators don't even know the trivium at all. They've never even heard of it. Okay? So, what happens above that? After human behavior, we get the result, right? We get what actually manifests in reality. So that's the generated result. The conclusion, the manifestation. It's what happens. It's what occurs in our world. Okay? The quality of the condition which manifests in any given society is going to be based upon the aggregate quality of behavior within that society. That determines what our world is like. All right? Now, if you were of a mindset, just let's say, so to speak, to try to control that outcome, what level would you want to control things from? So, here's how to control reality, if you're of that mindset. And there are many people who are. Are you going to try to control it from the level of manifestation? Well, I think that's pretty impossible, right? Because it's already occurred. It already manifested. You're not going to control it from that level. So we could take that out of the equation. Are you going to control it from the human behavioral level? I mean physically. People's physical behavior. You're going to try to control that in each individual? Well, you could, but that's called overt control. And people see that pretty readily, right? And they'll rebel against that pretty quickly, because they'll know they're under control. So that's going to be the most difficult place to control that from. Can you control it from people's decision-making processes, meaning from the level of mind? Yes, you absolutely can. But that's actually more difficult because you have to go to each individual and you would have to try to change the way that they think. Instead, the most effective way to control reality is to control it from this base level, available information, because that's the level all the other manifested realities are built upon. So if you can control that, you control the whole game. And you control behavior, and therefore you control the outcome. Okay? So we're going to look at how Tesla's name was actually removed from education, from schools. How was that done? How was that accomplished? Okay? Because if you're going to control available information, you have to have some level of control over educational institutions that are teaching children, allegedly. So where are you going to control that from? Are you going to control it from each institutional body? Would that be effective? I don't think that would be very effective. I think the best place, if you are of a mindset to try to control what is going to be taught to our children, would be to control the books. Okay? And when you control the books, which is the available information, you are controlling the answer to this question in the minds of children. What is possible? The imagination becomes stifled at that point. If you can control what people believe or don't believe is possible, you have total control, because you control the human imagination. So this was done through controlling books and what was printed in textbooks. And I'm going to explain who did that. If you control it from a level of books, you control the mind. Mind control is not science fiction, ladies and gentlemen. It's based upon the control of available information, which then determines our decision-making processes, which then determines our behavior, which then determines our reality. So, what this starts to sound like in the minds of people who are listening to me is, you're talking about a conspiracy, right? This is a conspiracy theory. Well, it's a conspiracy, but it's no theory. Okay? People have been mind controlled to not even understand the real meaning of the term, the word conspiracy. They don't even know what the word means or where it came from. Okay? The conspiracy comes from the Latin language. Con in Latin is a prefix that means with or together. Okay? And then the second part of the word, spiracy, comes from the Latin verb spiro spirare, which means to breathe or to respire. Okay? And of course, spirare is in turn derived from the Latin noun spiritus, meaning spirit. This is why when we're breathing, we're said to have spirit. We have life. We have spirit. When we stop breathing, we expire. The spirit leaves the body. Okay? So, with that definition in mind, a better understanding of the word conspiracy is simply this: those who come together to do something in like spirit. The word literally means of like spirit. Okay? Those who are of the same mindset and the same spirit, sharing the same goals. That's all it means. Okay? So, who were the conspirators? Who conspired to keep Tesla's name out of the available information that was taught to children in schools? Well, we know this gentleman. Most of us know this gentleman here, J.P. Morgan. We know his role, how he was connected with Tesla's life and work. So I'm not going to get into him that much today. I am going to talk about a couple of Tesla's other financiers who financed his projects, namely Nathan Rothschild and other members of the Rothschild banking dynasty, and John Jacob Astor, who was another one of Tesla's funders. Okay? And then I'm going to talk about John D. Rockefeller and his connection with these other gentlemen, and how he and the Rockefeller family and dynasty ultimately ended up controlling publishing houses. Okay, this is what we need to understand how Tesla's name was eradicated from human history, essentially. Not completely eradicated, but let's call it significantly marginalized. All right? Now, you'll notice that these men and their family bloodlines are some of the most influential people in the creation of some of the world's largest globalist think tanks. And what globalism really means is the centralization of power into fewer and fewer and fewer hands. All right? This is influenced by a lot of these think tanks that you see here. But again, these men here, Morgan, Astor, and Rockefeller, or what I would call, and many other researchers into this field of research would call, agents of the Rothschild dynasty. Okay, this entrenched and foreign banking dynasty that ultimately controls the central banks of the world, including the Federal Reserve System here in the United States. Okay? They're also, again, very influential people who paved the way for things like the United Nations, the Royal Institute for International Affairs, the Council on Foreign Relations, which is right here in New York City, the Trilateral Commission, and the Bilderberg Group. I want to get into specifically, again, Morgan's influence in changing his connection to the Rothschild dynasty and his influence in changing the way publishing houses printed information. And I'm going to talk about how influencing the Rockefellers are in the modern day in this endeavor, in publishing of modern textbooks. Okay, so let's get into this. Again, these are globalists. You have to understand that's their mentality, that's their ideology. They're for the centralization of global power into fewer and fewer hands, and always work through think tanks that support global government. Is, of course, J.P. Morgan, his influence in the publishing house takeover in America to take it out of private family ownership, which was ultimately involved in writing textbook and publishing, and bring it into corporate ownership. And, of course, in the modern day, the Rockefeller family are the owners of the publishing houses. They own and control them all, essentially. Okay? So let's look at this dynamic a little bit. Throughout the 1890s, J.P. Morgan made many substantial loans to the Harper Brothers publishing houses, which were the big publishing houses of the time. Morgan's involvement in the Harper firm started the shift away from private family ownership of publishing houses, first to private investors, and then to large corporations that began to dominate the publishing industry in the mid-20th century. Today, the Rockefeller family own and control 3 out of the big 4 school textbook publishing houses, including Simon & Schuster, HarperCollins, and Random House. The 4th is Pearson, who the Rockefeller family does not outright own, but they largely influence. Okay? The Rockefeller family also owns McGraw-Hill Publishing, Little Brown & Company, Macmillan Company, Viking Press, Saturday Review, Business Week, and Book of the Month Club, among many others. They totally dominate publishing, and they were agents of the Rothschilds and Morgans during the time of the turn of the 20th century and leading right up into the 20th century and beyond. Okay? These globalists are who control those publishing houses. And what other industry do they control? Oil. They're the owners of big oil. Okay? When you think of the name Rockefeller, you think Standard Oil immediately. Okay? So they have no interest whatsoever in a collapse of their dynastic wealth, okay, in favor of free energy technologies. You know, when Tesla told people he was going to light up the entire world and give it free energy free of charge, that's the last thing that these globalists wanted. The absolute last thing they wanted. Okay? So they did everything in their power not only to stop the technology from being manifested, but to wipe Tesla's name out in any way they could. And it's ultimately to maintain control over this planet. Because they do have control over this planet. They're the people who control Earth. Why do they control Earth? Very simply. They control energy. Everyone needs energy to live. And if people remember nothing else that I say here today, or accept nothing else that I say here today, understand this. The control of energy is the control of human beings. It's the control of people. That's what people have to understand about all of this. We're not talking about just the control of a controlled energy paradigm. We're talking about the control of human beings and what they need to live and survive. Or in other words, slavery. Let's just stop euphemizing. There's too many people who euphemize things, and they don't want to call things what they really are. The control of energy is called slavery.
So what is the problem? Why don't we have free energy? What is holding us back from it? Well, this is the part that may be difficult for a lot of people to hear. Why don't we have all of the wonderful innovations that Tesla envisioned? Why aren't we operating on a wireless world? Not on fossil fuels and the dependency that goes along with it. Why hasn't Tesla's vision for the future already come about? It's not because we don't have the technology to do it or the know-how, okay? There's another deeper, much more deeply seated psychological reason that we have not given birth to this new energy paradigm yet. And Tesla can give us a hint as to, what we really need to understand. He said that peace can only come as a natural consequence of universal enlightenment. Now, people have a different idea of what enlightenment means, and I'm going to hope to shed some light upon that. I like to say that free energy can only come as a natural consequence of universal spiritual enlightenment. And again, that's the state that we have to create internally first before we're ever going to manifest the external reality that we say we want to see, that is our claim. Things need to change in order for that to happen. But what, in fact, needs to change? Deeply held belief systems need to change. There needs to be a paradigm shift. A way of seeing the world needs to go away, and a new way of seeing the world needs to be born into existence within each one of us. That is a paradigm shift or an ascension in human consciousness, coming out of darkness and rising into the light. A paradigm shift has requirements. It does not magically just take place. There is will and effort that is involved. Okay? So what are these requirements? What, in fact, must change? And here's where the difficulty is going to be coming in for some people here in the audience today. There are two world religions, universal religions, I call them, that are ultimately holding humanity back from the manifestation of free energy. For free energy to emerge, these religions must be completely abandoned. Completely abandoned. And people may be very shocked when they hear what these religions in fact are, because it is not what you think. It is not what you are thinking of as religion. And in that sense, we need to define what I mean by the word religion. Religion is a system of control that is based in an unchallenged dogmatic belief system. Religion, as a word, the etymology of the word comes from the Latin language. The word relegare, the verb relegare in Latin means to tie back, to hold back, to thwart from forward progress, or to bind by tying. Okay? So what is in fact being held back is the progress of our understanding of the way the laws of the universe actually work. We are being held back from an understanding of truth. And the progress is all in the mind that is being held back. We are being mentally and psychologically held back. This is the first religion, the universal world religion known as money. Money is a belief-based system of control that is built upon the fear of scarcity, which is purposefully designed to limit access to energy. That is what money is designed for. It is designed to limit access to energy so that we operate on a scarcity mindset and worldview instead of one that is based in abundance. That is the first universal world religion that almost every being on this planet believes in, unquestioningly. The second world religion, the universal world religion that is almost as universally believed in as money, is the erroneous concept known as authority. Authority is an illusion of a diseased human psyche that is based entirely in violence and is built upon the erroneous and dogmatic belief that some people are masters who have the moral right to issue commands, while other people are slaves who have a moral obligation to obey these masters. That is the religion known as authority, and it is a false religion. The world religions, money and authority, this is the structure that it represents. It's a hierarchical, compartmentalized structure in which we are ruled by the god known as money. Below that are the people who say, we rule you, the authoritarians. Below that, the people who say, we fool you. These are the people who propagate standard traditional world religions and New Age movement. And below that, the people who shoot at us if we disagree with the authoritarian religions. And below that, the people who profit off of it and think that it's all okay for this immoral violence to continue unabated. And below them, all the people who uphold the system through their actual energy and work. This is the system of the world, ladies and gentlemen. Whether you recognize that or not, there it is, and that is what is taking place. This authoritarianism that is inherent to humanity's current worldview and social structure is completely antithetical. That means diametrically opposed to the rights and freedoms of the individual. Those who have become bound to an authoritarian worldview gradually lose their ability to display free thinking, engage in civic discourse, and even be able to envisage the notion of true freedom. The imagination is stifled, and they cannot even envision a way out of their current trap. Through fear, scarcity, and our own acquiescence, these two universal false religions keep us rooted into the base brain. They keep us in the reptile brain, the lower brain, which is the brainstem and cerebellum. This is all fight or flight mechanisms, okay? Pure survival, the reptile brain. We are not operating from a place of emotions or empathy, let alone a place of higher order thinking and reason, which is brought about by the balance of the human brain or the neocortex. That's what scarcity ultimately does. It keeps us in the reptilian complex of the mind. In such a fear-based and fight or flight state of consciousness, humanity has become collectively incapable of truly creative and liberating thinking, which is also known as human imagination. We are operating in a cage for the mind, collectively, and we need to get out of it. Adherence to the religions of money and authority blocked the implementation of Tesla's work. And here are three of Tesla's main funders: Nathan Rothschild of the Rothschild dynasty, J.P. Morgan, of course, who funded the Wardenclyffe Project, along with John Jacob Astor, one of Tesla's other main financiers, who, as we all know, pulled their funding when Tesla wanted to do something that was truly liberating for humanity that these psychopaths could not control. But you know, who followed those orders? Those orders came down to military men who decided on those orders to destroy the Wardenclyffe Tower so that it could not be studied and understood further and preserved for posterity, and hopefully be activated at some future point so that we could really move into a sustainable future as far as energy was concerned. To this day, adherents of the religions of money and authority still block the implementation of Tesla's work. And they don't care who they have to exploit, or even if they have to destroy the very living, dynamic energy system upon which we all depend for life, called the Earth itself. You know, profit above people, profit above the Earth. To this day, these adherents are polluting the very system upon which we all depend for life continuously. And we're letting them do it. You know, how quickly we forget about things like the Gulf oil spill as soon as the media stops talking about it. We have such a short attention span. See, it's all about profit. And that's where they want us. They want us in their mindset. They want to give us a watered-down version of the way that the psychopaths at the top level think. You know, if you're saying, is what I'm basically saying that this is a conspiracy? Absolutely, I'm saying that. But I'm not here to talk about the people who are ultimately in charge of that worldwide conspiracy. You know, that's a whole other lecture entirely. I'm talking about the systems of belief in the bulk of humanity that prop it up and make it able to continue to go on unchallenged. That's true for the majority of the people of this world, as painful as it is. You know, and if that's what our God is, expect to remain in a cage for a long, long time. If you put that God over the universal God of all creation, then my personal opinion is that we deserve what we get. And we don't deserve anything better than what we have right now, as long as that remains our highest value system. Imperialism. This is what the worshippers of the religion of authority, those who worship at the altar of authority and are order followers. You know, if you don't believe that this slide is true and this is what we're really doing and that we're attacking other nations to take resources because we think we should have it at their expense, you know, I think you're a very naive person if you don't think that's the main motivating factor personally. Worshipping at the altars of money and authority, most so-called modern science is being used to perpetuate control, greed, and hegemony, rather than what Tesla wisely told us that science should be used for, the betterment of humanity. You know, it's about making more effective weapons of destruction and controlling people through media and food and surveillance systems, etc. That's the cutting edge of science today, not the betterment of humanity and using it for liberating purposes, unfortunately. You know, I think if Tesla was here, and I do believe that Tesla is here in spirit, absolutely, I think he would be telling us one thing, and he would say it in two words. He would say, get out. And he would mean get out of the mind control, get out of the head cage, get out of the systems of illusory belief that do not serve who we are. That's what Tesla's message would be if he were here today.